Hey everyone, welcome back to the next video. Hope you're having a great day. Things are going great. It's the holiday season, so that's exciting. I've been looking at this character and I think I need to make some pretty drastic adjustments. So I've been comparing against my concept art, which is, let's see if I can find that guy. And this is where our concept is at. I'm pretty happy with this. So we have veered quite a bit from the file, and this just happens on occasion. You know, when you're doing your work, sometimes you veer in a positive direction in 3D, and you're happy with it, and you like to move on, and you don't have to match this perfectly. But in this case, I really like and enjoy what's going on proportionally with our character. So, and I'll show you what I mean here. So, if I were to line this guy up as closely as I could, so I just turn down my see-through a little bit to about 37. And try to line the feet up and get the pelvis and the major landmarks in place. You can see that the head is still probably half the size it should be, and the pose on my concept is quite a bit more dynamic. His legs are leaning more diagonally this way, and we have these nice little. And we're going to achieve some of this in the suit coat when we extract the suit coat, but. His head for sure needs a good amount of adjustment. So I'm going to take a few minutes in this video and just try to get us back in line with our concept, and that's gonna send us over to Transpose Master. So I'm going to go to Z plugin. I'm going to switch everything over to Transpose and then mask the head by holding Control, choosing our mask lasso, and then dragging a lasso around the head area, the head and neck. I'm going to blur that, Control left clicking on the mesh, invert, Control left click, tap, and let's turn back our see-through and just try and get things. And if you want to, you can actually somewhat lock your camera position so you don't have to continue to navigate around to line things up. You can come over here to draw, and then I believe it's scaled down to, whoops, sorry. It's Document, Zap Link Properties, and then you can click any one of these buttons here. If you click like Front, that'll lock your view. So if I come back over here and I get off, you know, okay, I want to line this back up quickly, I can come back to Document and click on Front again, and it'll snap it right back into position. So that's a really handy pro tip for you. Okay, so I'm gonna move my Transform Gizmo, turn off See-Through, and get this guy in place. I'm gonna click this button and switch back to the Legacy Transpose tool and get that in place here by clicking the outer orange circle in the middle. You can move that around. Not sure if I explained that well enough. And right now we're on scale, so I'm gonna come over here to masking and just blur my mask like 3 or 4 times. And then scale that head up. So we'll snap back to our camera angle, and that's getting definitely closer. And now we want to orient the head. Oops. So we're going to rotate and then try and rotate the head into a position that matches more closely. So snap it back. Turn down our transparency. I'm going to scale up again a little bit. There we go. It's looking closer. And it's not going to be exact, but I really liked what was going on there, so I'm going to try to get back to that. The neck is obviously pretty broken now, so we're going to stay in transpose mode and go to our Move Topological brush and start to move his neck around to match more proportionally what that was. So it's getting really crazy at the moment. Want it to be more slender, get that mouth bag out of the way. So we're definitely getting more in caricature, more stylized territory, which is exactly what we want. And just using smooth, move topological and smoothing things. Snap back to our view and then see where we're at. Getting closer, but his glasses definitely need to be bigger. So you'll notice that we still retain our poly grouping. Even though this is all combined into one subtool, we have our separate poly groups. So I'm going to Control Shift left click tap on one of the verts on those green glasses. And then I'm going to mask just those glasses so we can isolate those to work with and invert my mask. Switch back to the newer Transform Pose tool, and then I'm going to lock my pivot here and scale these guys up. Looking pretty sweet. Switch to the the snake hook brush. The thing I'm going to do with these is I'm going to inflate these out just to give them some thickness. Continue to kind of adjust the shape. Okay, let's snap it back to our view and then do our see-through. Okay, so his glasses are definitely getting closer. Got to be careful as we're deforming these because, you know, we want them to still be symmetrical. So it's tricky because we're out of symmetry mode, but you can kind of just eyeball it best you can. Rotate these back up in place. To an extent, the asymmetry in these kind of adds a little bit of character to them. I mean, you don't want it to be too crazy. But, okay. Kind of getting there, I guess. Smoothing those out. Okay, I think we're good. Let's just take one more look here. Okay, a little bit better. Let's do our leg posing a little bit. Let's refine that. So I'm gonna use the lasso tool again, and then mask, and then Control click left tap and blur that mask. And then I'm gonna go back to my legacy transpose tool, drag out the joints. You can see I've been doing this for a lot of years, so I mean it gets really, obviously you get fast at it if you've been doing it for, you know, a decade like I have. So in this case, I think I'm going to try the move brush, and then snap it back. So I'm doing rotate right now. I'm in the middle circle and just kind of pulling that into place. Okay, so I think that guy's good. Let's do the other one. I'm just going to pivot that guy out a little bit. And then I'm going to scale up my snake hook brush and kind of just pull his pelvis this way. And then we want him to appear to be looking, you know, at the camera that he's going to be holding. So I think I'm gonna move his arm a little bit too, or that mask. And one thing you can do too is you can use your mask pen, and you can come over here to RGB, turn down your intensity, and then to feather that edge a little bit, you can just hold Control with that feathered intensity, with the intensity lower, and that'll do it too. So instead of having to go through and blur, if you really want control over that mask, you can do that too. Invert the selection, switch over here, move my joints, and then try to get that arm like more into place. The other thing I'm going to do is go back to the lasso, redraw that. I'm going to move his hand just a little too. There we go. And scale up the size of his hand to add some proportional stylizing to that. And cool. Remove this guy. And if you want to A/B this to kind of see where you've gone, you can always snap back over to your other subtool. So you can see we've done some pretty drastic adjustments here. I personally am liking this. I'm liking him looking significantly more stylized. So I'm going to send this back now to my subtool. Sweet, and he's looking a lot better. We have his eyebrow kind of poking through here, so let's fix that guy. Where is my transpose tool? Never know. Sometimes transpose gizmo has a mind of its own. Sometimes it just kind of does what it wants. Pretty sure it's AI driven. It's just taking over, becoming self-aware. Cool, okay, so let's add the sides to the glasses now too, and then we'll jump into the suit detailing. So again, I'm gonna use his head as my base to extract the geo out of. And I have symmetry turned on right now because if you remember, we had created posable transpose symmetry, so we're good there. And then I'm gonna hold control and switch over to the mask pen and draw out that kind of rough shape. But turn on your RGB all the way up to 100%. And then I'm just going to draw the sides of those guys. And you can blur this by control left click and left click tapping, and then re-sharpen that by holding control alt and left click tapping, and it'll re-sharpen that so it kind of smooths those edges automatically for you. Sorry for saying automatically. I'll never do it again. Alright, so go back to your subtool, drop down, and go to extract, and then we'll do an extract and see what that does. Just hit accept on that. Cool. We want those to be a little bit straighter, so you're gonna have to just manually kind of straighten those out with this snake hook brush. And then if I come over here to geometry and just run a Dynamesh, see what that does. It didn't work, it was too low res. You can crank that resolution to like 700. And also on top of that, you can undo that, go to about 900, 800, and click on the polish button. And what that does is it kind of gives it kind of a hard surface feel and will polish some of the irregularities in the mesh. So as you can see, it's kind of cleaned a lot of that up. Sometimes that can hose you. Just be aware of that, you know, being on and off. Deformation, I'm going to inflate these out just a little, and then re-Dynamesh. Cool. So now let's get these guys into place using the transpose tool again. Okay, so that guy's looking fairly good. And then the other one's out of place now. If we go to solo, so we're going to mask this one side, and then I'm going to recenter the pivot to the other side and get that guy into place. And I mean, ideally I made a mistake. I should have just done the glasses while he was in a full T pose. That would have been so much easier. But we did what we did, so we just gotta commit. Sweet, gonna unmask. Get this guy into place. Cool. Might be a little bit too much of a curve in that. Sweet. Cool. Okay. So let's get better. You can always come in here too with the H polish brush and just kind of run along that. Turn on solo to help out, get everything else out of the way. And you can run along that edge if you really want to try and get this creasing along the top edge there. You don't always want stuff to be kind of rounded and mushy. Sometimes you want stuff to be really creased. So you can continue to use the H polish. And then along the top side. Kind of more of a hard surface vibe. And then re-dynamesh that, and if you have polish turned on, it'll really help you out. Cool. So what I'm going to do is come over to subtool and then merge these down with my glasses. So that's all just one subtool. Okay. Control W to polygroup that, just in case we ever have to undo that. I'm going to go to merge and then merge down. Click OK, it's fine. And then let's rename these to glasses. Okay, so the next step here I think is we're going to add the suit coat. So we'll turn on, symmetry is not going to work in this case, but we're going to use our mask pen and just kind of start painting out where we want the suit coat to be. Start there. So yeah, ZBrush is a lot of masking. It's just kind of something you got to get used to, and it's kind of fun because you're painting a little bit in a way, and very powerful. Continue to mask that around. I think I had in the concept it was buttoned up on one button. Turn on solo mode, get stuff out of the way. You can hit Shift F to see what our polyframe's doing, and maybe that probably would have helped us in the long run. What I'm going to do is duplicate my subtool. It's something that I really like to do. It's just a very non-destructive way of working inside ZBrush. So like we're just kind of securing the state of the shirt in that other subtool, and we're moving on to this new subtool. It's a good workflow to get used to. Control Shift left click tap to, whoops, sorry, Control Alt left click tap to sharpen our mask. And I think it's probably a pretty good state. It's okay that we've got the interior. I'll show you a secret there on how to get around that. Let's just make sure that we don't have these edges wrapped around selected in the mask. So make sure you Control Alt, left click and paint to invert your mask. Wrap this guy around, clean this up a little bit, and awesome. So what we're gonna do now is you turn on your polyframe by hitting Shift F. If you hit Control W, it'll make everything that you masked its own polygroup. Okay. So now if I Control Shift left click on invert in that polygroup, it'll hide everything else. And you'll notice that we got some of the interior Geo2 masked in, and we don't like that. So we're going to come over here to display properties, click on double so you can see what I'm talking about a little bit better. And we want to get rid of, this is a problem right here. Let's Let's mask this guy and hit Control W to make that a different poly group. And then Control Shift left click, drag, or sorry, Control Shift left click on that poly group again. So now we don't have that connected point because that's going to hose us. And now if you come here to poly groups, into this drop down, you can hit auto groups and it'll actually just make everything that's its own island will be a poly group. So now I can get rid of that interior geo and now I just have this exterior geo. Okay, so that's great. And now I'm going to come in here to geometry, modify topology, and go to delete hidden to get rid of that other geo. And I'm going to do a fun thing called group loops here. I might have already showed this. We'll just leave it at default and just hit group loops. And it's going to smooth out that jagged edge for us automatically, which is awesome. Love me some group loops. Using the move topological tool, I'm going to move this sleeve into place a little bit better from where it was. And let's turn on everything else. Turn off solo mode. So right now it looks like he's got a sweet cardigan, sweater type thing. It's kind of like a Mr. Rogers deal going on. Let's come over here to deformation and inflate that out just a little bit. So get that as a top layer. And then if we go back to my concept, you know, it's kind of baggy in the sleeve, so let's add some bagginess to it. Still using the move topological. I'm probably going to switch over to the snake hook. I like that a little bit better, this kind of stuff. And then using the clay buildup brush, which one do I have? That's 3 on my keyboard. I'm going to add these like sleeve creases that we have in our concepts. You know, these pointy shoulder, kind of shoulder pad looking deals. Use H polish and holding Alt to fill in that gap. Just going to pull that geo up a little bit. Back to our clay buildup, going around the side here, and then using the Damien standard to kind of carve in this edge. Still using Damien standard, holding Alt to pull it out. So we're getting closer there. It's starting to look more like a soup on that side. And do the same thing over here, turning on solo mode, get his chin out of the way, his big monster chin. Smoothing things back. Damien standard. And then using the H polish to fill in this gap, holding Alt, sort of pull that geo up and out. Apologize, I've had a little bit of a cold and been a little bit congested. It's typical for me this time of year. Just the holiday season. Okay, I'm going to start to carve in some of these wrinkles here too. Get this weird kind of bulbous mass on the side. Let's get rid of that guy. This is probably going to intersect with our white shirt. We're just going to have to jump in and modify the undershirt. Oops. H polish and Damien standard to sort of carve in those wrinkles. Okay, awesome. Oh, camera's getting out of whack here. camera and ZBrush can get a little dicey. Okay, start over here now, doing the same kind of thing. I don't really want his muscles to be like jutting through the suit as much. Getting these wrinkles. It's always good to pull up reference too, and ideally you can find someone that's doing the same or a similar pose that your guy's doing, wearing similar type of fabric, which can be tricky, but hey, the internet is a big thing. I like to sharpen my elbows. I want those nice and sharp. Kind of dig the carved look too that H-polish gives everything. Pull the seam using the Damien sander, pull it all the way around to the armpit area. I think suits have this seam here too, right? So let's add that guy. Okay, so we'll turn off solo and see what damage we did. If I alt left click on the shirt and then clear my mask, we can start to push that back into place too, because we're happy with the suit coat. We just want things to fit underneath that. So let's get that guy working again. Cool. And then this guy, we actually want to give this guy some thickness. So there's a way to do this using. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save, and I'm going to version up my file here to version 4, and save, and then come down. I'm going to drop this subtool down to the bottom by holding shift and clicking this button, because that's my work area, it's where I like to be, and I'm going to duplicate this just to save that state for a minute here. And then I'm going to play around with this extract button down here, and just hit extract once, and let's see what happens with it. It's fine, that's fully unmasked. I'm good with that. It gave us some thickness, but it's definitely too thick. So let's undo, hit Control Z, and we'll switch this to like 0.005 for now. And then hit extract. Okay. And that's better. I'm gonna hit accept on that, and that's gonna be the new subtool. Turn everything on to make sure that things are working, turn off solo. And cool, so it's got thickness. I'm going to pull this guy down a little bit because suit coats usually go a little bit longer. And then also one thing we have to do is sort of create this interesting bunching right here. I'm going to delete the old jacket. And I mean, the reason that we made some thickness here, right, is because your 3D printer obviously can't print something that's single-sided. It can't print like a flat plane. We haven't looked at our concept in a while, so let's take a look. I'll tab over. Okay, we're in a good spot. I think the shoulder could, the shoulder stylization of these points could be accentuated a little bit more. Let's get these to touch so we can get a button in there, and then we'll extract the collar out of that afterwards. So let's do that. And I'm using the move topological for this purpose so that I can have my brush size scaled way out and not be affecting that other side because it's not part of that immediate topology within that little target area. So that's why I do that. You can crank your intensity too if you like. That might help. So I'm gonna pull these shoulders up a little bit more. Pull these shoulders up a little bit more. Maybe this way too. The move topological does some weird things too with the geo. Sometimes you'll see like little edges and things as you use it. I find that the pros outweigh the cons for that. Did I not delete? I thought I deleted my jacket, my single-sided jacket. Let's come over here to our upper jacket and just hit delete and hit OK. Give it to that guy. I hope I didn't delete something else that was important. Maybe I did. The nice thing about that, our versioning up workflow, is we can always jump back to our old versions and steal subtools out of that if we need to. So I'm going to make this jacket kind of bunch up right here as his arm is pulling that up and out of the way using the Damien standard. This stuff is fun. I love sculpting clothing. It's very therapeutic. You guys are doing well, and you got your gifts all purchased for your loved ones. I think my wife has broke the bank. Okay. I think I'm going to run another Damien sander right here to bring me back. It's easy to lose those little creases when you smooth stuff. I'm going to do an inflate, a very subtle inflate to kind of pinch that in. We lost the crease over here too. And we want to give him some mass in his back. Alt left clicking to switch between subtools in the viewport. Looks like we got some interesting detail on the reverse side of this guy. And redraw our same here on this guy. Using the H polish, gonna flatten out this interesting little bulge that I got underneath the armpit. Okay, so we want there's a little slit in the back of these suits, or a couple little slits depending on the style that you want to have. And what I'm going to do is, first things first, I think I'm going to commit and switch this all over to Dynamesh. If I hit Shift F, we're still using a semi-clean topology, and we want this to be in Dynamesh mode. So come over here to Geometry and then hit Dynamesh. Just hit Dynamesh and see what it does. Way too low res. We'll switch up to like maybe 1000 and see what that does. And we want to get roughly the same or a little bit higher poly count as to where we were at, so we're not losing detail as we run that Dynamesh. And the reason I did that is so that I can do this fun thing right here. What's the best way to do this? Let's turn on solo mode and hit Control Shift and click over to your select lasso brush, and I'm going to do the two slit suit style. So I'm going to come over here and draw one slit, and I'm going to hold Alt to switch that to a red selection, and then I'm going to do the same over here, holding Alt, make sure that I didn't come through on the other side, and then I'm going to come over here and do a delete hidden and do close holes, and it's going to kind of fill that back in, but it still kind of gives us a little bit of what we want. So let's use the snake hook brush and just kind of pull that back up. We'll clean this smearing up after we re-Dynamesh that. I guess we could have just done this without the whole close holes thing, but Control left click and drag to re-Dynamesh outside of your mesh, and so now we have this interesting single flap going on, and I'm gonna kind of pull this guy down a little bit. Another cool brush is the pinch brush. If you hit P, and then I guess it's I, and pinch brush is awesome. Sometimes I love to just run that over these details just to see what it does. It does some very interesting things if I want to just kind of crease this a little bit more. And sometimes I'll scale it, way up and just do some broad pinching proportionally over a character just to see what it does, because it does do some fun things. Okay, so now we're going to add our wrinkle detail in here. And one thing you can do too, I shared in my other videos, is if you want the smooth to have a more drastic effect, you can actually use a smooth stronger brush. You come over here to all the way up to Lightbox Tools, go to Brushes, and then come over here to Smooth. And you can click on the Smooth Stronger, and it's going to say this is the new default, and you'll say OK. And so now when you hit Smooth, it really smooths. And so just be aware that it's gonna be more intense. But when you get into higher poly counts, it's really beneficial. And you can always drop down, if you're holding Shift, you can drop down your intensity that way, and then it'll still have the same effect as the other smooth brush, but just you have the capability of being a more smooth operator. So using the Damien standard, mixed with the H polish, probably going to be noodling with these the entire time. I can just see it. These shoulders, and using H polish. Flattening this guy out. I don't want it to be so round. Okay, let's switch back to our concept here. Okay, let's do it all. So we'll turn it all on, and then snap back to our previous view with document. Go to the front view and see how things are doing. So obviously his hand's a little bit higher up. I'm fine with that. His shoulder needs to come out more, which is definitely something that needs to happen. But overall, we're getting a lot closer to where we need to be. He's a pretty built dude, I feel like, so okay, we're still doing broad strokes here. I think I'm going to now extract out the collar, and let's see. Okay, if we hit Shift F, we still have our exterior poly group and our interior poly group from when we did our mesh extract. So we just want to affect right now the green. So we're going to Control Shift left click tap on the green to hide everything else. And then we're going to, using the mask pen, draw out our collar shape around this. And the reason I hid the other stuff is because we don't want to have to deal with cleaning that up after we do our extract of the collar. So let's just hide it and get it out of the way. And make this guy work here. Shift F to turn that off. Okay, and make this guy come out just a little bit more. Tab there with concept, so I have them really pointy. They're really jutted out in the concept, so let's go that way. Okay, and you know what, I might as well do this. Let's try this instead. So we're going to duplicate this subtool right now, and then just with the polyframe turned on, let's hit Shift F to make that a poly group, and then we'll unhide everything and then just isolate just that collar and come down here to delete hidden, and then we'll actually mask in our little slits here too. Get these guys. So we essentially just broke out the collar into its own subtool. We just want to isolate that already, as opposed to just doing a mesh extract. So that's just a different method of breaking things out. Okay. With the polyframe turned on, I'm going to hit Control W and then get rid of this other poly group. Invert my selection and then delete hidden. I'm going to come over here to edge loops, group loops, and it's going to give us a smoother edge. Sometimes you can click that 2 or 3 times, but I do want these points to kind of maintain. I want these to be real sharp. And then I'm going to hit Control W just to repoly group everything, because sometimes when you run group loops, not sometimes, all times, it'll make a little bit of it'll make a poly group that runs the length of the outside of your island of your geo, and we don't want that. So just Control W a few times just to be safe, and then let's do this. Let's run a Z remesh. So if we come over here to Z remesh, this is going to try to create a clean topology. We'll leave it at 5 for now and just see what it does. It's usually a fairly quick operation. Okay, I mean it's not terrible. Let's just rerun it again just to see what it does. See if we can get a better edge over there. And then we'll do an edge loop, and I'm going to turn off polish all the way to 0 in this instance. Switch this to 1 and just hit group loops. And it's just going to add a loop around everything for us for now. I know it's not perfect, the geo's not perfect, but it's going to be fine for our purposes. So come over here to the Z modeler brush now. And as we mouse over one of the faces, we'll switch it to extrude. We're going to do polygroup all, and then pull that guy out like so. And give it some thickness. So we want to make it look like it's kind of coming up off of the suit a little bit too, instead of just being like directly extracted out of that. So come in here and fix these edges. Let's do this. Let's hit Control D just to see what that does. Sometimes that'll just kind of smooth things out for you a little bit. And then I'm going to drop back down and then just hit delete higher. So all we essentially did was kind of run like a smooth over the geo. Let's turn off solo so we can see how things are looking. Cool. Still trying to incorporate the pointiness in this style. And I know that tuxedos have kind of a different look to them than like a typical suit that you'd wear at church or something. So I have to look at some reference to see what the differences are there. Okay. Come down here to, let's do an inflate. Just kind of inflate this whole thing out just a little bit. Cool. And then I'm going to alt left click over to the suit and unhide everything, clear my mask. And then we'll try to fit this into place a little bit so we're not seeing that underside of the suit. Just finagle that guy into place. And this collar is probably going to have to come up higher when we create the collar for the white shirt. A lot of work making these suits. It's just it was a little bit ambitious. This is definitely probably a more advanced Zbrush tutorial in hindsight. But hey, we like learning, right? I wish I had $1 for every collar and suit type thing that I'd made. So I'm just gonna pull this up and out just to see what we can do with kind of getting a temporary collar in place for the white collar. So his neck is getting in the way, so I'm going to try and alt left click over to his body geo and then pull his neck into place a little bit better. Turning on solo mode to get other things out of the way. Sometimes the brushes kind of conflict with each other when you're working right next to other subtools, and the best thing to do is just hide everything else. Something I feel that could probably be improved upon a little bit. Back some of his neck details, those giant tendons. He almost always has like a vein sticking out of his neck too, like a drill sergeant or something. We're not gonna get that detailed, I don't think. It's an interesting dude. I mean, filming his whole life basically. Like, I would never do it, but And it's just interesting to see someone who's lived such a crazy life, filming all the aspects of it. Let's clear our mask just to be safe. So, okay, getting sidetracked, get back to the color area, and then try to push this guy back in. You guys can definitely see my ADD levels. Making these videos has actually really helped me to learn how to focus again. You know, we've had kind of a wild few years and just getting sucked into the TikToks and the podcasts and getting distracted by things instead of just trying to get better as an artist. So I'm going to go back to H-polish and kind of push this back into place. Turn on solo mode and just run along all of this collar area. Running Damien Standard along this too. So a lot of Damien Standard and H-polish for hard surface type stuff. I'm going to inflate this out because it's a little bit pinched. Give it some thickness there. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do for now, I think. Obviously, we definitely need to refine the collar and then make it look like less blobby. And then give him a tie and give him some shoes and a skateboard. And there's so much stuff to do in this. It's going to be a long series. Maybe the next video I'll do something simpler. I'll do just like a bust. I've always wanted to do like a Hellboy bust. So maybe that will be next. But give me your suggestions if you guys want to see or learn to make something in particular. Let me know. And, you know, obviously I may or may not do that thing if it's kind of dumb. But if it's cool, just suggest it and we'll do it. We'll make that thing. Probably should have done Santa Claus or something for the holidays, but just wasn't feeling it. All right, turn off solo mode. So we're getting a little bit of a collar. And then in the next video, we'll find this collar, give him a tie, maybe give him a belt, and then probably his shoes is what we're gonna go for. So anyway, draw, there we go, 24. So he needs a camera, he needs a skateboard, he needs shoes, and then a base and a tie. So we have a ways to go. In the next video, we'll continue to flesh out the details. We made some good progress here, especially with the caricature and the stylization of our character. We learned how to, you know, lock our camera perspective in so we can get our proportions a little bit more in line with things. And I might have to try to have him look down a little bit more just because kind of like that look, and the concept is looking a little bit more down and out the top of his glasses to the camera. And yeah, so we made good progress, and please like, comment, subscribe, let me know what I can do better, and again, just suggest ideas of things to make that you guys want to make. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you in the next one.